Hi, my name is Volodymyr and I am a CEO of a software development company named NerdsLab. We specialize in a startup building and growing new and young businesses. So today we have an interesting topic to discuss. It's MVP, or in translation minimum viable product. So first let's start, what is an MVP? In reality, it means that you need to spend less possible effort to achieve the minimum results for a project that solves a business problem for a specific group of users. It can be customers, businesses, doesn't matter. You should not focus on solving many problems at one time just because you have limited resources, limited time, and you need to be very fast. You need to find your exact audience that strives from this one issue and concentrate on it until you will start rapidly growing. MVP is a minimal product. You can start thinking of using no-code tools or ready out-of-the-box solutions. For example, it can be Wix for landing development, or it can be Firebase as your backend tool, or like many other ready solutions that requires no code. It's a good thing, really good thing to start, as it requires no development time, no team need, and no additional resources. You can do everything mostly based on your own, without requiring any support outside, and as a result lowers the risk of your already limited fundings. Still, you need to understand that each of these tools, they have its roof, meaning that up to a certain point it will work and will give you beneficial results. But when you will try to develop something new or connect with different secondary vendors, you will face an issue that it's either super hard, either not possible. That's why I would recommend to start with a no-code solution as a prototyping, as a way to show to investors the basic idea, or in case you want to have some very simple proof of concept that does not require spreading across a big audience, that you can simply develop it easily and it's done. Otherwise, I would consider building on a custom solutions that exactly fits your idea, because there are many technologies and you need to pick the right one that works best in your scenario. The next thing to consider, if you will go with the approach number 2 when you will be working with the custom solutions, it's to be tech savvy. What does it mean? So as a startup that's on its early stages and you are developing a minimum viable product, most usually you will have a very limited fundings, which means that you need to spread them very wisely to achieve the best possible results. You are not the big company like a Facebook or a Google that has billions of dollars, that can experiment, to do everything they want and still have no harm with spending unnecessary resources. You need to be very precise in this area. You need to understand that on the different stages of a project there is benefits from different approaches, different tools, and so on. And in case you are not benefiting from one tool or one specific development on initial stages, I would recommend avoiding it up to the later stages and investing this money in something more useful for your startup. Even if you developed, you can use this money to do custom user interviews, user journeys, to ask questions from your audience, and after that enhance your product with additional functionalities or the functionalities that's really needed by your audience. So example of this thing would be a unit tests. Unit tests, it's a programmable written code that automatically runs a test if the code executes correctly or not. It's a very good approach. It's like in a developer's Bible that everybody should use it. But you need to understand that if your project takes 100 hours to develop, additionally you will spend 40 hours or unit tests, which means like 140 hours in total. Still, at the same time, this doesn't give a benefit for a small projects, just because they are not so widely spread with its functionality that it requires to keep everything testable coded. In this case, you can use a manual testing, and most probably it will give much faster, more accurate and cheaper results than using developers to write a code for you. Still, on the later stages, when the product starts growing, you will require this because it will be very hard to keep everything under control, because the project grows like a tree, and the more time spent, the more modules inside of it, the more features works across each other, interacts with the different modules, have different integrations and so on. To keep it testing manually and test it very accurately without losing bugs, it will be very hard. And in this case, you will require to pay money to buy a developer who will be writing a unit test, integrational test, different like automated test processes for your project, so that basic functionalities are covered, and instead of a human going and checking if it works, you simply press a button, it runs and tells yeah. The sign up with a happy flow works, or unfortunately no, this functionality is currently not working, you need to check what's going wrong there. So as of my clients, I usually recommend to spend time only if your project is more than 6 months, because it's big enough to think about this functionality. Otherwise, you will invest money that can have much better fit in an early stages of startups. A lot of the times, my client, when he comes to us with an idea, he have a good vision why this idea will succeed, what problem it exactly solves, and what problem it solves that different within the competitors. Still, along the road, they start spreading with different features that really not solve the problem, but rather is a complementary thing. It's good to have, but in reality, it's not the killer thing that will make a final decision for your customer. And as you have a lack of resources, you need to focus on this single feature or single problem that you are solving and invest everything there. Try to capture limited amount of users that's ready to pay for you to solve this idea. And after that, when you will prove that it's really needed and your users will start getting new feedbacks, new requests for additional functionalities, you can rapidly start like evolving your product, but not before that. Keep your focus tight and do not spread it on many areas. Otherwise, you will create the product that does everything but does it bad, which nobody likes. Everything starts with architecture, and it can take like from 8 hours to 800 hours depending what you will be developing. You need to keep this balance with your initial architecture, tools that you will select, frameworks, so you will not spend much time early to develop it. But in the same time, you need to always keep in mind that you're a startup, which means you will be rapidly changing based on your users' feedbacks. One feature can be completely thrown out and another injected. Whole modules can be rewritten, which means that you cannot hard code something because it's super fast, but end up that you won't be able to be fast and flexible to changes. That's why you'll need to be very wise and find this balance between fast development in a start but in the same time scalability and flexibility for the project in the end. You're a startup, and as a result, most probably you don't have any benefits across other businesses who is offering a work to a chief technical officer, which means that usually it ends up hiring some friend, top developer that works in your team, or any other possible person that has any understanding of technology. Still, you need to understand that CTO should be balancing between technology and a business, which means that he should propose a good technical solution considering the business values it will bring, business resources it has, and so on. Usually, when the CTO doesn't have this business grab, it ends up with using everything new, all new technologies that's not proven by other development companies that it will succeed, it will work, it will cover our case, or they are starting building this massive architecture that can handle firing rocket into the space, which in reality we don't need, and half of the budget is wasted on preparing rather than a development. And because of that, when you will be considering the person who will be working as a CTO on your project, you need to consider that this person should have a business mindset. They need to understand that they may be forced to go on a compromise and develop something with a bad approach, with older technologies, reuse something ready, combine, just to secure resources and reinvest these resources into other areas that's more important. They need to find this balance. They need to understand that they cannot do anything they want and they have a responsibility. So this person should be not only tech savvy, but this person should also be a business wise, and keep that in mind, it's very important. A lot of the startups, they're really focusing on creating stunning UI elements, cool animations, unusual transitions between screens, something that will stand out. But in most of the cases, user only needs to have his problem solved. He doesn't need this animation, he doesn't need this transition, and it means that you will invest a lot of money for a designer, after that for a development, to create something that's not related to solving the problem, while you could save this money to solve this problem in a more efficient way. That's why I'm begging to concentrate your attention into user experience, how the user will interact with your application, how your application will solve exact problem, rather trying to make this application outstand based on the UI, other apps in the market. You cannot compete with a Facebook, you cannot compete with Airbnb because you don't have resources. The only thing you can do something differently and solve the problems that they are not solving. And most of the cases, 95% of the time, the problem won't be in the bad looking button or missing animation. It will be something deeper. Still, there is an application that really requires having a really fancy UI, just because the way it works. For example, it's meditation apps. They may not have a bad UI because they will create a bad feeling, and as a result the user will achieve bad experience within the app and probably drop off out of your conversion. So most likely UI is not important, UX as past. Some cases can be an exclusion from this rule. The first main flag is that your MVP takes more than 2 or 3 months. In most of the cases, if you're solving one problem, unless this is very complicated technical solution, you're able to solve it in 2 to 3 months. If it takes longer, it can mean that you're solving several problems, or it can mean that you're solving the problem but in a very extensive way, and maybe it's not worth trying to build something for a long time without receiving the market feedback. It's rather better to solve this problem in a simpler way and get it live, receive feedback, does it good, not, what you need to change. There is also exclusion from this rule. If you're building a technical startup who is solving a hard technical solution, most probably yes, you will need more than 2-3 months. You may need a year, 2 or 3. For example, a startup that was building an AI that can replicate a voice of an actor or any other human. Yes, it's a hard technical solution and they require much more time to develop it, as nothing like that was developed before. But if you're building an Airbnb, but I'm sure for homeless guys, then most probably you can do it much faster than 2 or 3 months. Right now you are very frustrated by different popular applications like an Instagram, who has many features, and as a result you're trying to, if you're trying to be like them or you're trying to facilitate in their area, you will be trying to copy these features. Still, you need to understand, if you're first time giving a user the product that has many functionalities, the user will have an issues understanding how to use it. Instagram firstly had one list of images. After that they added the mentions. After that they added stories. So they were evolving step by step, and this brings them to the state where each time they integrated something new, it was a simple action for user to be taught how to use it. But imagine that you never used Instagram before and you get this application open. You don't understand what is these photos, how to add them, what is these circles, why circles have a different colors, why you can see something you cannot, and so on. It will be a very hard journey. The same thing here. You need to understand that the journey for your user who is here to solve his problem, solve his pain, should be very simple and flawless. Still, when you want to grow, you will need to switch to a custom development, and you will need your data there. So if during usability of out-of-a-box solution you got 1000 users who is paying, who is really happy with your solutions, you spend tons of time trying to convert them, speaking to each of them directly and convincing that your product is the one and should be used. When you will try to migrate this data, but you will end up that you don't have access to it, it will be a real pain to offboard them out of an old application to a new one and ask them, please register, please enter your data. And it will require either a bunch of actions from their side or a bunch of actions from yours, especially if you don't have access to the data at all. Because there was such cases in our history where our customers were using third-party tools that encapsulated a database, and we were unable to know what our users are and so on. We had general analytics, how many, what the usability state and so on. And it ended up that we were unable to transfer this data even by hand. So this is a worst point considering if you will decide to go with out-of-a-box ready solution, because it can bring a bunch of a pain when you will be doing migration. I would recommend you to take an advices of a company you are paying for a development, because they can be valuable and they can be based on the previous experience, which will give you much benefit than you will be thinking that you are knowing everything. Keep that in mind. Thanks for watching. We'll be filming more videos about startups, about their history, what tools you can use, how to evolve that, the possible mistakes, and anything that may be interested for our audience. Feel free to write a comment what you're really interested, so we can pick the topics that bother you the most and elaborate on that. Thank you and see you next time.